Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, and I am joined, as almost always, by Josh Bowe, fellow editor over at MavsMoneyball.com. Josh, the Dallas Mavericks just won the NBA championship. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Let's go to Disney World.
Oh
Two. Does this one count for two? Is that how that works?
My brain's not really functioning. I'm just going to be honest. I've had several days in a row on top of a 6 or 7 month period where I just haven't gotten enough sleep. And a lot of that is choice. Stay up late, do podcasts, have a small child, get a puppy. These things are compounding. And I am not all here. And when someone else volunteered to take the recap off my hands tonight at Mavs Moneyball, I was elated because my brain's just not there. And then I'm sitting there watching this first quarter of the game. So for those of you who may not have been paying any attention because you were checked out on the series, and quite candidly, I don't blame you, the Dallas Mavericks beat the Celtics 122-84. And the team that showed up tonight was just, really on both sides. The team that showed up for the Mavericks was not, we haven't seen them play like this since Game 5 against the Wolves. The first quarter was really, really something where the Mavericks play. I'm trying to think what was different about the quarter other than the fact that the defensive intensity and the decision making on the defensive choices, like the switches, felt a lot firmer. The Boston offense was a little lackadaisical. What about it? What was different about the start of the game to you?
I think the biggest thing, so funny enough, offensively, because we talked about this after Game 3, mm-hmm. I didn't see a ton of adjustments scheme-wise. I mean, they're more lineup-wise, which we can get into, but that didn't really show as much in the first quarter because they didn't start making subs, until the second quarter. Because the Mavericks still, they had 21 assists, which is not a terribly high assist game. Luka and Kyrie still scored the majority of the points. They still took the majority of the shots. The Mavericks only had five players in double figures, but two of them happened in garbage time. Tim Hardaway Jr. and then Exum hit some shots in the fourth quarter also. So they really only had 3 in the game. So all the things we talked about for Game 3, too much one-on-one basketball, the Celtics kind of shading their defense so that they're not going to blitz or trap Luka or Kyrie, but they're still going to make things difficult, make them try to take difficult contested long twos. Some of that stuff still kind of happened, but the Mavericks just made shots. And that's what Kyrie, when I, that was one of the questions I got to ask after Game 3 was, they're taking away Gafford and Lively and Jones and Washington scoring. What's your counter to that with the way they're playing you? And to him, he said, when he said we, he's referring to himself and Luka, saying we have to be more efficient with our opportunities, with the thinking being if we can just keep punishing that coverage by ourselves, then that's going to maybe force them out of their comfort zone. And I know a lot of people wanted them to try some different stuff. And really, that's kind of what happened. The Luka and Kyrie were incredibly efficient on 2-pointers. The Mavericks were, for the game, 30 of 49 in the paint. That's 61%. They were 18 of 26 in the restricted area. They were 12 of 23 in the paint outside the restricted area. I think Luka in particular, Luka was 5 of 6 at the rim, 6 of 10 in the paint away from the rim. Easily their best paint game. They scored 60 points in the paint. So they were kind of right. They just took that coverage and were like, okay, we're just not going to miss these paint shots we've been missing. And then their defense was a little bit better. But that was the story to me. Is it just feels like they kind of took what Boston was giving them and just were ultra efficient with it.
Well, and as the game wore on, and we're talking second and third quarters because the game was over with by midway through the third, the Luka was scoring so often and so easily that the natural inclination from the Boston defenders in the corners was to peel off. Like,
I think I saw some doubles for the first time in this series.
There was a Josh Green 3-pointer where he got fouled by Jaylen Brown, where he stepped in on a Luka and Luka just whizzes it past his ear. That doesn't happen in games 1 through 3. Amanda Jackson in the comments makes a really fantastic point. I can't believe I didn't remember, and this just shows you how much brain worms I have. She says Lively making that 3 completely broke the game. The game was tight until that moment. And I tell you what, I 100% agree with her. That was the kind of shot where, first of all, Derek Lively hitting his first 3 in the NBA Finals, hitting his first 3 of the NBA season. Is that correct? I don't know. He's the youngest player to hit a 3 in the Finals, to go along with being the first player since Magic Johnson to be a rookie with multiple double-doubles in the NBA Finals. I might look up that Lively stat in a bit, but I just truly incredible stuff there. And, the way Luka was scoring, I still felt like in the first quarter, he got a lot of calls this game. That's just a simple fact.
The Mavericks took 22 free throw attempts.
Well, that's honestly, but with how physical the Celtics defense was with him, you had Drew Holiday out there body bumping him 50 feet away from the basket. And I'm okay with them not calling that sort of stuff because I felt like it was pretty consistent. But the Mavericks don't guard the Celtics guys that far from the hoop. That's just not a choice they're making. But it's really interesting to watch Luka channel the frustrations that he was having in game 3. And, we've talked about this a lot. It's fine. And I know some people don't like it when we talk about this, but I don't really care. When Luka channels his emotional energy to just playing and to not barking, it has a trick. It affects the team the same way as when the polar opposite of when he does talk, because I think the energy is so negative. And I know I sound ridiculous to a degree, like I'm a lady with crystals talking about feelings and stuff. But over the course of the game, Luka talking so much just matters. And he didn't do it at all in the first half tonight. I don't really remember him complaining once, to be quite honest with you. And I'm sure he did. It's just part of the game. But he really, slowly took over and was just sort of everywhere in that first quarter and first half. And it just, he had 25 points at half.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Well, I mean, how many did he finish with here? I don't even know.
He only had 20. Finished with only with 29.
So he had 4 in the second half because they were just they were. I mean, and his 29, 5, and he had 3 steals and only 1 turnover. Like, that really doesn't address the impact. I was talking about the free throws with him a little bit. I think that got the Celtics a little bit off kilter. But like that, if I'm a Celtics fan, and I'm I could be off key here, but like getting beat like this would not make me like, you gotta be like, okay, fuck, what did we do here? I still think the Celtics are a really absolutely incredible basketball team. So I don't want to, teams are allowed to have bad games. Hell, we've seen the Mavericks have some bad games, but it's just, I'm not exactly like a big, if you don't believe you shouldn't be here kind of guy, but like, you watch that game and you're like, all right,
did
the Mavericks find a little something? Like, we're kind of skipping to the end because the Mavericks come out of the halftime and I think they were up 26 or something like that at halftime.
Yeah.
35. It was like 35-61, something like that.
Yeah, that was it.
And God, they held Boston to 14 points in the second quarter. Just incredible stuff.
Go ahead.
Well, the game was over. The midway through the third, the game was over.
Yeah. The stat of the game and the stat of the series, really. Mavericks had 7 corner 3 attempts, which isn't, still not a lot. They only had 5 in game 3, so they improved. But here's the kicker. They had 7 corner 3 attempts. The Celtics had 6. It's the first time all series the Mavericks have had more corner 3s than the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Not a surprise. Celtics had 18 corner 3s in game 3, and then they go down to 6. Like that. That's the game. It feels really stupid. We could talk here for an hour about all these different things, but like that, just look at that number. And that kind of tells you how the game went. It's not a shocker that this was the worst game.
But Ryan Parker in the chat with a excellent, not like a counter stat, But something that I think is worth talking about here.
Oh, yeah.
Kyrie and Luka were 1 of 14 from 3, and the Mavericks won by 40 points. That is
crazy.
Fucking nuts.
They scored 60 points in the paint. Luka was 11 of 16 in the paint. Like, not overall, 11 of 16 in the paint.
Oh, he gets that, and it's so funny. We've talked about this for years. He gets that left shoulder past the defender's hip, and he usually likes the guy to ride him, and he wants to throw an oop or kick it out to the corner. I mean, what did you say he was? 5 of 6 at the rim?
5 of 6 restricted area. Yeah.
Restricted area. Okay. And the one that he missed, I remember it where it's just a little too much sauce on it. That's all. Like it's almost like he was surprised he was all the way there. So that was really something.
I mean, Luka made more shots in the paint tonight than the Celtics did as a team. Celtics made 13 shots in the paint.
Well, that's a great pivot point. Okay, Mavericks offense came alive. Yeah, Mavericks defense was spectacular. There were some Luka stops, not like I feel like a Luka stop at the rim is a sentence that doesn't make sense, but he sort of stonewalled Tatum a couple of times early. Tatum only finished 4 of 10. And it was like, even the announcers were like, "Whoa, hey, what's happening here?" And I don't want to sit here and act like Luka answered all the defensive questions about him that were raised after game 3, but we have to absolutely give credit to the man's defensive effort in that game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, half the battle was just getting back on defense. Like when you talk about complaining, like it's not the complaining necessarily, because like you said, all prominent NBA players complain to the refs. Mm-hmm. The thing with Luka that sticks out is that his complaining seems more detrimental to like the play, because just the way that he times it and like, not getting back on defense. We talked in Slack. We didn't talk on the podcast about that play in game 3 in the first quarter. When he was on the floor and the bench was like yelling at him to get back, like none of that was happening at all. Like he was, just getting back in transition makes a world of difference, especially with the Celtics team and how they can get you all mixed up with cross matches and everyone can shoot. And like they're playing, 4 or 5 guys that can all rip from deep. Like you just got to get back, and like he was back almost every time. And I think that just helps stabilize they help them get into their half court a little bit better. And they're a much better half court defensive team with all these rim protectors and their length. Like they can use it to their advantage when they're kind of set and settled. And that happens when Luka's getting back on defense, which I thought he did a great job of.
Mm-hmm. So you take out these threes that Luka took. Luka was I'm bouncing all over.
He had no legs on his 3, but that's okay.
It's so funny. But all right, so you back out those threes. He was 12 of 18 from the floor. Yeah. My God.
Oh yeah, he was absolutely dominant in the paint. Yeah. Limiting the Celtics to 6 corner threes is huge. Celtics, I mean, definitely the Celtics kind of got a little loose with the ball in terms of like they kind of just. I mean, there's definitely you don't win by 38 points without the other team like helping you out a little bit. Like in the finals, like the Celtics definitely didn't give their best effort, but the Mavericks were way sharper. I thought Lively had an awesome game defensively, and I think that's kind of the key for them is can Lively look like Lively? Can he play in space? Because I think those first two games, it's just tough because he just doesn't see this, like the 5-out spacing. Like we've seen him struggle with that in the regular season. I feel like he's just getting more reps and he's feeling more comfortable. I think the Mavericks did a better job. I'd have to go back and rewatch because I could be just saying this. I could be completely off base here. So correct. So I'm sorry if I'm wrong here, but I felt like in game 3, they were very specific. They were very diligent in keeping Lively and Gafford near the rim at all times because I think they just did not want their bigs guarding in space. And I felt like tonight they trusted their bigs a little bit more to play out and guard the corners, but also trust that they can recover with that length. And with Lively and Gafford, they both have foot speed. I think get out, cover the ground. Like Gafford had that block on that Tatum 3.
That was nuts.
I felt like they trusted the bigs a little bit more to expand their responsibility. Whereas in game 3, it felt like they were like, hey, don't leave the paint. And Boston got so many threes because they're just like, don't leave the paint. Don't worry about it. And I felt like they just tweaked a little bit so that those guys could kind of roam a little bit farther because they're so Lively's got what, a 7'7" wingspan?
Lively's
use
so
it,
big,
right?
man.
Like he can recover to the corner and to the paint. That's not the corner to the rim. That's the shortest distance from the 3-point line to the rim. Obviously, it's it's just shorter than the above the break. Like, you use that to try to ward off some of those corner threes. And I thought the Mavericks did a better job trusting him. And then it's up to Lively to reward that trust, and he did in a big way.
Oh yeah, and I think like the lively of it all is, we talked about the corner three earlier. His offensive rebounding was
huge.
So like, Bill Simmons, was it? I don't know. I've listened to every NBA podcast. I know a lot of fans skip stuff whenever the Mavericks lose. I don't blame them. It's like, why do you want to hear? But I'm always interested in hearing of what various either commentators or experts have to say about the Mavericks. And one show I listened to pointed out just how sort of out of control Lively was in Boston. And I think that's accurate. Like, he was. That's not a criticism. It's just sort of a statement of fact. These two games in Dallas, I mean, the game 3 effort from him was really, truly amazing. And then watching him do it again tonight, but in a way that the Mavericks were really rewarded, is quite something. Like, beyond there's just so many like fun plays that I can't wait to see how he expounds upon. I'm pretty sure it was a cross court. They're at opposite wings in a fast break. Luka passes to Kyrie at the right wing from the left wing during a fast break, and then Kyrie flips it to Lively for a dunk. And they panned it to Dirk and Patrick Dumont, and they're just dying laughing because it's. I don't know if I'm ever really going to get used to this sort of verticality with Mavericks basketball, man. Like, it's so fun to watch and makes you wonder sort of what the team building guys were thinking several years ago. And it's like, let's only give Luka shooters. And
no one that can run and jump.
The verticality element of the game, when there's space, gives us a lot of room. So,
yeah. I mean, it's not a surprise. What Gafford and Lively combined for 18 points. I think that's easily the most they've had in a game combined. Like, and when those guys are scoring, that's usually a good indication the Mavericks are going to win. So
right,
that was big. And then we didn't even get, I don't know if you want to take a break before we get into what I think was kind of like low key the best adjustment they made tonight.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a quick break. All right, friends, family. We have fewer people here than I would have thought following a win. But those of you who are here, if you're new to the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you're here on YouTube, if you're watching from Twitter, head on over to YouTube. We're at Pod Maverick. We go live after every game. You can participate in the comments, have a good time. Following the first podcast here, I will do a secondary show where I would like you as the fan base to come up here and talk a little ball with me. After game 3, there's a lot of that was a long show. I was very surprised about that, where lots of people, it took a while to get going, but it was a lot of fun. We do this after every show. Next season, when I'm back to not having a baby, I will probably be doing this more often, but I've done it after every playoff game, and it's been a great time. Last thing, if you're listening on an audio stream, we're going to insert some ads here. If you could go ahead and listen to those, I would very much appreciate it. That's how Josh and I make a little bit of money, and we will be right back. All right. My wife is across the room. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
She just goes, "Where's your baby going next season?" And I'm just like, well, we're not going to be up. Because it's pretty silly thinking about the stream or thinking about this, but I mean, in November, like,
you had a baby.
The baby was joining us in the episodes. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. Anyway, we are back. What did you say? You had recommended we break, and then you said you had a take you wanted. So what are you thinking?
Oh, yeah. I think because schematically on the offensive end, I don't think there was a lot of adjustments. Kyrie, I don't think because the thing I keep looking for is Kyrie catch and shoot threes, and they just are not happening. I think he had like 1 or 2, and one of them was off an offensive rebound, so not necessarily off of like off ball action.
Yep.
So that's still something that they can look at. But I thought when we're talking adjustments, the Exum Green minutes in the first half were huge, and Green played a little bit more in game 3. He's actually been playing a decent amount this series. He's averaging now about right around near 20 minutes per game, but he had 20 22 in game 3 after 14 minutes in game 2. And I know he only had 18 minutes. It's not even the most minutes he's played, but he had a lot of impactful, I felt, early first half minutes. And so did Exum, who played his most minutes in the series. And you think about it, you think about how Boston is guarding Dallas and the way that they are letting Kyrie and Luka work one-on-one, the way that they are kind of shading help coverage, not necessarily from the corners, but whoever's near the rim. If there's a big, if Lively or Gafford in the game, they're kind of putting a defender in the paint to ward off Luka and Kyrie. They're kind of helping off the above the break players. They're helping a little bit. They're not outright trapping, but again, it's almost like a shell kind of defense with, they're okay with Luka or Kyrie taking one-on-one shots. And then if they get a little closer to the basket, then they maybe send one. It's not that trap and blitz that we saw, Oklahoma City and the Clippers and the Timberwolves do. And what makes that hard is that means there's more, your role players have more responsibility to try to do something. They're basically saying, hey, we don't care if a role player has a little extra space or can play one, go one-on-one, because we don't feel like your role players can beat us one-on-one. And they don't get that extra room if we're not doubling and trapping. So you think about PJ Washington, obviously PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Lively, Gafford, who are their main role players outside of, past Luka, Kyrie. Those guys aren't really going to beat you off the dribble that much. PJ can do it a little bit.
PJ stumbled in the lane, and I
had a great layup.
I was at PCA yesterday, and I think I was talking with the basketball coach of that program over there, and I was just like, we're talking about the different guys in Mavericks that can attack the basket, and PJ's still a young man, but he's got to tighten up this dribble. Like, he gets into the paint, and it's like, okay, turnover.
Yeah, for sure. So that's something you can work on. But Green and Exum are probably, outside of Kyrie and Luka, their most dynamic players with the ball in terms of being able to dribble and pass, right? Maybe Hardy, but I think I would trust Green and Exum as passers more than Hardy. And so it makes sense if the Boston Celtics defense is like, hey, we're not gonna give your role players a ton of space, or we might shade off them a little bit, but we're gonna close out on them.
Right.
Like Green and Exum being able to attack closeouts, being able to attack one-on-one coverage and move the ball, touch the paint, kick out, or finish is just such a difference maker when you've got PJ and Derrick Jones Jr., who are just kind of like, we need to catch and shoot. Like, that's kind of what they want to do. We want to catch and shoot, where Green and Exum can catch and go. Like, and that just makes such a big difference. And I don't know if that's going to last. We'll see.
Well, you got to play Exum. That's what made kids' decision in Game 3 to fucking put Tim Hardaway in for 37 minutes. So stupid. Exum dunked the ball and he never saw the floor again.
I know, it was very weird.
Like I'm sorry. And kid got salty about it in the post game presser, and I'm like, I'm sorry, boss. It was a bad call. Tonight they made a better call. They left him out there. And granted, kid has been basically playing third guard roulette for the better part of three series now. So I don't entirely hold it against him, but man, those guys looked good. That was really.
They were difference makers, and they only had one assist between them, I think. Let me see. Yeah, Green had one, X-Men 0. So
sure.
Again, it's not about assists.
But Exum was pushing and attacking. There was one layup, kind of floater shot, really, where they couldn't get the ball to Luka. And at like 7 seconds, he just kind of, in my mind, I always think of it as like the volleyball line, right past half court, where it's like, and he just takes off and scores at the rim. They wiped a three off the floor, off the books, because they said he had a heel touch, and then he hit another three later. That's one thing I just haven't entirely understood about this playoff run is Exum can't, he's 4 of 7 from the floor, 2 of 4 from 3. Exum can't do anything if he's not going to get opportunity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And to be fair, he looked really bad in that Celtics series.
Yes.
Or not Celtics, sorry, the Clippers. And then he didn't look great in the Thunder. And then didn't really get another chance after that. He had a good 4 minutes or whatever in one of the Wolves games, and he didn't play anymore after that.
Right.
And I think kid just didn't, after those first 2 series, just didn't trust him for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, this might be a good matchup for those two. And again, it's not, you look at their numbers, and Exum got into double figures. Josh Green only had 3 points,
but his energy was.
But the movement and the dynamicism of his play, I thought made a big difference compared to how standstilly a lot of the other Mavericks role players can get.
That's true. Sense? Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Though, and this is only in my head because I saw like a mixtape of Drew Holiday working out in the off season, and it was a mixtape of him playing defense and blocking the shit out of guys trying to score on him. And Green gets this step from the right wing or right corner past Holiday, and he basically tries to use the rim as a means of protection to get the shot up, and Drew just swatted him from behind. And I was like, man, like Drew is one of the most terrifying defenders in the league. Like Luka's already talked about it. It's not news, but like every time I see him do something, it's like, man, this guy is special. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think we need to note this was their no Kristaps Porzingis again for the most part for the Celtics. And you're finally starting to see, without Kristaps that they can look a little more vulnerable. Al Horford played 23 minutes and had one shot. Like he does not have the trigger that KP does. And like it turns that 5-out spacing in a little different on its head. And it's kind of what we saw. Remember when the Mavericks played the Thunder with Chet Holmgren? And it's like, oh, what are the Mavericks going to do against that 5-out spacing? It's like, well, Holmgren's release isn't there yet. And he was a rookie. So he's going to get there. He's going to get better. But his release isn't there. He doesn't actually get up as many attempts as you would think. And for me, volume is king. Like the percentage is great, but it's how many shots are you going to get up? That's what's really going to put the fear of God into a defense. And Horford's trigger is just not the same as KP. Like say what you will about KP. He's had seasons where he shoots like 34, 35%. And you're kind of like, why doesn't he shoot better? But he also gets up like 8 or 9 a game. And it just keeps the defense honest. And Horford only got up one shot in 23 minutes. Like, it just changes the floor balance, I think, a little bit. It makes it easier for the Mavericks to cheat, recover, use their size and length to their advantage.
Well, and I will say, this was the first game. Like the scheduling of these finals is wonky. So they have 2 days off between every game up until now, where they get 1 day off. And that 1 day rest, Horford's 38, I think. He's one of the oldest players in the league. So asking him to be ready to go again is tough. It's a tough ask.
And he's basically been the starter all playoffs.
And so, Xavier Tillman has been like quite candidly remarkable and how he's been called, like in what he's done. Like he's guarded Luka really well on the switches. And so but at the same time, it's a different look. We've talked about this for years, really before this current iteration of the Mavericks. But like one of the reasons that Tim Hardaway was so important to previous iterations of this team is because he would actually shoot the fucking ball.
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't do you any good. Like, Maxey had a good game, so I'm going to pick on him for a second. He got a left corner 3 where he ended up driving and getting fouled, but he pass faked to no one on the baseline. Like, do you remember this?
I might have missed this one.
He got free throws off the drive, but he pass faked to the baseline. I yelled at my TV, and then he took it off the dribble. Anyway, I bring that up to say, it's like, you just got to be willing to shoot. And if you're willing to shoot, your defender will kind of, you have it in the scouting. Like he's, it's like Maxi Kleber is not a stretch 5 because he doesn't shoot anymore. Right? Like they don't care if he takes the shot. Versus Horford, if Horford's going to shoot, like the Mavericks are like, oh fuck, we're not giving it up to Horford. But he's just not. At the same time, he's also not a catch and shoot guy. Like I'm sorry, that's not correct. He's not he's
not going to get up 10 threes in a game.
Right. He's not a totally willing trigger man is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's a difference for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And his release is a little bit slow. Like KP, he gets that shot up. Like,
oh my God.
It's
just
a big difference.
An incredible shot when KP gets it up. Anyhow.
Right. So I think that's a big difference for sure.
Well, is there anything else we want to touch on, or should you got writing to do?
Yeah, I got writing to do. You got a live show to do. But yeah, that was fun.
Well,
even if the Mavericks lose Game 5, like that was just cool for the fan. For the fans that were able to.
I needed that a little bit for my own
to
psyche.
Get one. Yeah, it just helps, right?
Like I just quite candidly was getting sick and tired of all the dumb motherfuckers, and I'm sorry for my cursing. Actually, I'm not that sorry for my cursing. I'm getting tired of all the dumb motherfuckers who are like, our team should have been here. And I just am constantly reminded of the scene from The Social Network where the Mark Zuckerberg character is like, if you would have invented Facebook, then you would have invented Facebook. If your team should have been here, you should have won the game. Shut up. You don't see me sitting here talking about how if Derek White doesn't make multiple absolutely crazy shots, maybe the Mavericks are up in this series. Do you know why? Because he made the shots. This shit matters. Like, it's so disrespectful. Oh, I don't know about these Mavericks. It's like Kendrick Perkins talking about how Luka's stock's gone down because of the finals. Kiss my ass. You're in the fucking NBA finals.
His deepest playoff run ever in his career.
My God,
like, what are you
doing? Now, we can criticize, and you should criticize the Mavericks for some of the things that have happened, but they still got here.
Right.
My goodness. And so with that in mind, I'm just really glad that the Mavericks did this. So
right. Everyone's you got free to fire back on your podcast, because I know every time the Mavericks lose, I see a bunch of fans that are like, well, I'm not reading or listening to anything for the next 48 hours.
Right. And it's always our most loyal people too. That's the funny part. Yeah. Anyhow. Okay. So I'm going to head over to the live show. Those of you who are listening on the audio stream, that'll get posted at some point on Saturday. And then Josh and I will be back Monday night. We'll see what's going on here. Everybody head over to MavsMoneyball.com multiple times over the weekend. We'll see what we're going to be doing here. Oh, hey, quick shout out to 2 super chats. This is incredible. Cameron Drummond sent us $50. That's a lot, man. That's a hell of a super chat. Listen after every game. Love the podcast. Thanks for all the hard work from both of you this season. Mavs and 7. Appreciate that, man. JM 3245 sent us $10. He says, I'm pledging $100 if Mavericks win game 7. That's pretty amazing. All right, guys, hang around if you're here in the live stream, and we'll be right back. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out, and let's go Mavs. Hello, friends. Welcome to Mavs Party. It's really nice to be here after a win after so many days, because it feels like it's been 2 weeks since the Mavericks won. You're joining me after the Dallas Mavericks beat the crap out of the Boston Celtics 122-84. You're also, if you're here at the live stream, you're joining us following Josh and I talking. And I forgot to razz Josh after this. So you guys know we were having a live group therapy the other night after the Mavericks lost, and I couldn't figure out why the show ended. I thought it was just a glitch. All of a sudden the show ended. Well, I learned today, took Josh 2 days to cop to this. Josh ended the stream from his phone. So congratulations to Josh Bowe for being the first person to prematurely end Mavs Party, because we go on this thing forever. So anyway, that was pretty funny. All right, so first I'm going to bring up my man, Sudarshan from across the world in India, and we're going to let him talk and then get back to his day. But Sudarshan, welcome to the show. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Good morning. It's the perfect start to the weekend.
That's exactly right. What did you think of the game?
It was, Kirk, we have to talk about Jason Tatum now. He has to stop bitching at the officials and play good defense.
See that tunnel over there? It's where the winners are.
It was kind of ridiculous, the kind of discourse over the past day and a half. It was, yeah, we don't get ESPN over here, so I usually follow through all the YouTube clips or whatever bootleg streams that people put up on YouTube. But oh my God, Windhorst acting like as if he was Luka's lifetime mentor or his biggest fan, acting so disappointed was.
I don't hate it though, because like, and my man Brian, who's waiting down there, is like, I don't agree with anything that Wendy said, more or less. But like, I went and listened to it, and I'm like, look, I missed the first quarter of Game 3, And I earnestly believe that first quarter game 3 is where the Mavericks lost that game. Not later on, because they were just out of it. Versus tonight, they buried the Celtics in quarter 1. Like when Derek White hit that prayer off of the jump ball when it was 28-18, I was like, is this guy ever gonna miss something decent? And of course he doesn't. And but then the Mavericks pulled ahead anyways. And so it's just this was a really, like, it was a kind of a cathartic win. And I know there keep being Celtics fans who pop in the chat being like, well, the Mavericks are going to lose. And it's like, well, I mean, considering it's never been done before, I would say that, yeah, that's still likely that the Mavericks will lose the series. It's very, it's impossible, but you can't do it until you've done it.
This just basically proves that the Mavericks are a better team when their role players actually hit shots, which, they haven't been doing, honestly. And I know that Luka's a superstar or whatever it is, but basically, I think people just went completely overboard. Like, you were right. Perkins saying that his stock has dropped. Like, oh my God, that man can't.
Mavericks didn't make the playoffs last year. They tanked to get out. Like Luka's stock, like, are we talking compared to after the Wolves series? Then sure, his stock is lower. But are we talking overall? Like, the man is going to compete for an MVP until he wins one or until he retires. Because I think Luka's just going to be the kind of guy to play till he's like 31 and then pull out. But it's like some of the discourse is just, it's too much. Oh, sorry about that, guys.
Nah, it's cool. No, I was just surprised that Kendrick Perkins actually strung 2 intelligent sentences together. But yeah, it was just a fantastic game. And to be honest, this is free basketball for us. No one expected us to be in the finals. This is just basically overtime. So just enjoy it and go ahead with it. The one thing that was fantastic to see was Lively actually hitting his first 3 of his career.
That was amazing.
Yeah. And I know everyone's jumping up and down saying that he's the next stretch 5 and all of those kind of things. I think the next step in his game is to just develop like a Tim Duncan post game. Like just around the key, a good jump shot or a hook shot or anything like that. That's the next step in his game, and I think that'd be fantastic to see next season.
So here's the thing: I actually think he has all this shit already. I don't think they let him do it. like one of the, and we're talking Lively, right? Sorry, my wife was putting away some dishes and it was very loud in my kitchen for a moment. The thing that really happened with Lively during the draft process last year was he started hitting threes in workouts in a way that made everybody go, oh. And there was already kind of a fairly decent consensus that by the end of the year in college basketball here in the United States, that he was one of the most impactful defenders. But nobody knew anything about his offense because he played in a Duke system that's kind of there's no screen and roll. It's all kind of motion based. And so I just got to acknowledge my man Sam here. Sam's going to come up and talk a little bit later, but he's just wandering around his house with a Dirk Nowitzki photo as he's waiting to come on the show, and it's really making me laugh. Sorry, but yeah, Lively's really, he's special. Like Lively Wembanyama. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think the reason why he fell was because he was injured most of last season, which is always going to be a worry with the big guys. But yeah, I think the fact that they actually don't let him do that is kind of a good thing. It doesn't let him develop any bad habits.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
Anyway, yeah, great win. That's all I got. So
all right, man. We'll talk after the game 5 W on Monday night. All right.
Yep.
All right, talk to you, man. Okay. I did have something I wanted to say, but I can't even remember. Oh, you know what? We got 3 more super chats I want to acknowledge before I move on to Brian. And then we'll go with you, Sam. Don't worry. You're coming up here, Sam. You don't got to carry around that photo the whole time you're waiting. Shout out to my man, Henry, who he says, just checking in. I'll be back for game 6. And he says 156-1. And I think that's a reference to the number of teams that have never come back from being down 0-3 in a playoff series. Shout out to Mr. Dodang saying there's still hope. Magical season no matter what. That's exactly right. Henry, our man Henry again says THJ getting minutes next game, and I'm scared. Fair enough, man. All right, coming up next, our regular correspondent, Brian. What's up, man?
Hey. 2 quick things. 1, I didn't disagree with everything Wendy said. I said, right? I said him hinging his entire argument around Luka is the reason they're down in the series is where I'm like, that is absolutely a fallacy. I have no problem with complaining about the ref complaining. I have no problem complaining about the defense, but hinging the entire argument around Luka being the reason that we're down and Luka's defense being what was killing the team when we kept Boston, again, by the way, under 108 points for the fourth straight game. And
their lowest point total of the season.
And we won the first game where we cracked 100 points. I've been saying since game 2, okay, they haven't scored. They're an all-time offense, according to offensive rating season long, right? They haven't cracked 110 points against us yet, but we haven't scored 100 points. The bigger problem over the course of the entire series has been the offense more so than the defense.
Right.
And you saw when we were able to get some turnovers, really get in their jerseys, be able to consistently play with physicality. We turned the defense up, turned that defense into offense, got some easy buckets, and that was kind of the game. Oh, another thing to mention. I took one for the team tonight.
Did you not watch again?
I said before the game started, for my blood pressure, for my own mental health, I'm just gonna go continue my Game of Thrones rewatch.
Ooh.
And so I was watching Thrones. I'm early in season 2. And I looked and I checked the score and I saw we were up by like 18 in the first quarter. And I said, interesting. And that was on the real app on my phone. Went back to my Thrones watch, checked again at halftime, and I said, oh, we're still up. I stayed consistent with my Thrones rewatch though.
Good.
I didn't check into the game until 4 minutes left in the third quarter when they were just getting ready to pull the starters out. And so I would just like to pat myself on the back for being a good teammate.
I'm appreciative of that. While we're here, this is a programming note that may or may not be important to anybody, but I think it's kind of important because I actually think the House of the Dragon HBO show coming back on Sunday is probably it's like one of the few close to monoculture shows that we have anymore. People didn't know this, but starting in January, HBO went back and basically made it $5 more a month to be 4K. So if you want to see this stuff in 4K, you will need to go check your account and make sure you're getting it. Because I've been rewatching the first season and I'm like, this looks like shit. And then I heard on the show today, and because I mean, I have like the big ass like one of the really nice TVs. Like I just spend a lot of money because I never leave my house. This is what I do. And so I have a really nice TV, and I'm like, this looks terrible. Why does this look terrible? And I couldn't really. And then I heard on a podcast today that one of the Ringer podcasts that is why. So it's like as you get to the later, if you're watching it on HBO, if you happen to be watching it on Max, that might be worth a couple month investment just to pay the $5 more because it looks better. Yes, Wiki 1985 says an LG G3. I actually have an LG C3. I'm not quite that wealthy, but it is it's worth the investment. I'm not wealthy at all. I remember when my wife gave me the go ahead to buy that TV. I was insane. Anyway, back to basketball, which is what we're here for. I said something silly towards the tail end of the season, and someone was, or no, it was toward the middle of the playoffs, and someone said, like, what do you think Lively's like peak could be? And my peak is that he could be Draymond Green with a 3-point shot, only 7 foot tall. And tonight does nothing to dissuade that.
Yeah. No, when I heard they hit a 3-pointer, I was like, in the game?
Did you see the Istok Franco, correspondent from Slovenia? He writes for D Magazine and also does some things over there. He used to write at Mavs Moneyball till he abandoned me to be with the cool Mavs people, none of whom like me. That's fine.
Love Istok.
He posted a video after before game 3 of Lively taking basically the Larry Bird 3-pointer from the corner.
I saw that. Yes.
It's like that. When you watch this shot, your initial inclination when a big man shoots the 3, particularly one if you've never seen it before, is to go, no. Only he hits this thing and like it's Splash Mountain. It is such a beautiful shot. So you'll be really excited when you see it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it like within the context of the game. God, that's going to be so fun. But yeah, I said like a round ago that I'm done just trying to like cap like what this kid is going to be, because I didn't think he was going to be able to adjust to the level of play that we were going to need to be at to win in the Wolves series fast enough. And he was just like the best center in that series. Mm-hmm. And after game 1, I was like, I still believed in him. After game 2, people were like, this might not be a lively series. I'm like, that might be going too far, but he does not look good. And all of a sudden, he's just gotten it together. He did it again. He did it again.
Man, look, we've been kind of like jokingly hoping he would do something like this for the better part of 6 weeks, just because if you start like, let's just move past this series for a second, guys. If you trap Luka and your release valve is Derek Lively, and you're telling me that he can attack with both hands, pass to either corner or either wing, or simply take the open three, I don't remember what country. Well, I don't remember what country that the Americans played in 1992, where Charles Barkley was like, I don't know nothing about. What did he say? I got to Google this, but he's basically like, I don't know nothing about country X, but they're in trouble. And like, that's how I feel about Derek Lively if he's able to take the open three, because then he can also just go tip dunking himself. I mean, I'm so high on Derek Lively that I just didn't know anything about him, you know? And Barlow, Rafael Barlow, yeah,
told Rafael, me, man.
He's like very calmly, he's just like, trust me. He's like, just trust me. And
he said he's the one, and even he is like, I didn't see nearly any of this coming, and especially not this early.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I'm starting to lose words. And like you said before, his touch around the rim is so incredible. Once they give him the go ahead to just start like punishing mismatches in the post,
that's
he
right.
Gets a little stronger, strengthens his core over the summer, and he just gets to like go to work against people in the post and get a little left shoulder turnaround, get a little hook shot going, maybe get a little running floater going. You know what I mean? Like in the lane, if he catches the ball on the short roll and doesn't have a immediately open pass and he gets to attack, but it's a bigger guy as opposed to like, you know, a guard who's playing low man. Like, he's literally got to add 2 things to his bag to what he currently is. And this offense is unstoppable as long as we keep like a prerequisite level of shooting around the 3 of him, Luka, and Kyrie.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Well, go continue your Thrones rewatch. Report back to me. I'm very jealous of you folks that have the ability to have the time to do this. But then again, I do this instead of watching stuff like that. So those are the trade-offs we have. Thanks so much for hanging out, man.
Yes, sir. Oh, you want to have a quick laugh?
Sure.
I'm on the episode when Theon returns to to his home.
That's poor Theon. Poor Theon.
Not poor Theon. He deserved everything that happened to him.
He really did. He's a fucker.
He's such an idiot.
All right.
Oh, man.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Peace.
All right. Coming up next, my man Sam. Hey, Sam, what's going on? Show us your photo. No one's been able to see it yet except for me.
There we go. We're bringing this energy.
That's very important. Comebacks are very important.
Comebacks are important, and it's never a bad time to just ponder Dirk. Remember Dirk? I was a huge fan when you guys were doing that 41 Forever stuff. I ate up all that content. And the number one thing that I think about with Dirk that sets him apart from other like athletes I've held up in my own personal pantheon is he never let us down. On the court, off the court, in anything he ever did, he never let us down. And I think, you know, it's truly never a bad time to just reflect on how lucky we are that this is the timeline we get to enjoy, the Dirk timeline.
That's right.
So that always means a lot to me. Just a couple notes to run through. I mean, you called that Lively 3 unbelievable. I think you said last time you were like, "Hey, they got nothing to lose. Might as well let him shoot a 3."
Like nobody else can hit one, so why not this guy? Like, who cares?
I mean, that was a great call, and I've always felt like with shooting a basketball, if you're coordinated, you can shoot a basketball. It just takes time, right? There's just a natural level of God-given coordination it requires.
Well,
that's always been my take.
So I remember, you know, going to practice in like summer league in like 2016, 2017, maybe it was like whatever Dorian's first year on the team was. And remember, like Dorian used to not be able to hit the broadside of a barn. Like he was just not a good 3-point shooter. But then it's in practice, you go and like watching the skill level of these guys in practice where it's like, oh, they're doing something that's completely different than anything I've ever seen before. But that's how skilled these guys are. But it's also the pressure of being able to do it in a real live situation. And that's kind of that's like the dividing line between a guy who can play in an NBA game and who can't. And the fact that like somebody in the chat pointed this out, like that's not only is that Lively's first playoff 3, that's Lively's first career 3. And a
right.
win or go home kind of 3. Like that's incredible. Really excited about that one.
I didn't know it was his first career 3. I do remember when the rule was he was not going to be shooting those as he got used to playing in the NBA, which obviously a good idea from Kid to like start him there. Mm-hmm. Great to let him loose though. There's an absolute coaching art. When do you let guys step out of their comfort zone? Yeah, let's run through the notes. So I couldn't believe they didn't let Dirk get back to the game. He was too nice to give that interview in the fourth quarter. You knew he just wanted to be vibing out. I was hurting for him. I was like, let my man just enjoy, what did he say in the Brendan Wright dunk? Shut it down. Let's go home.
I just really enjoyed seeing him because number one, he looks great. Like he still looks like he's in great shape. Apparently, like watching him move around is a little bit painful from what I've heard, just because I don't think his ankles work very well, which is not surprising. But he's dressed like a Silicon Valley like CEO, just going places casually. Like he looks so good and so happy to be around, and it's always great to see him on the TV.
It's always great to see him. I always love when Sudarshan calls in Weapon of Vishnu. That's what I call him. He's the Weapon of Vishnu. I love how Brian's house is never the correct time of day. There's always just way too much daylight, assuming he's in America for whatever he calls it. So I always get a kick out of that. The basketball question I have is the way Tillman Sr. guards Luka better than anyone else I've seen guard Luka. I asked the question to the chat, and I got an interesting answer. They said, well, it's because he's pretty much the exact same athlete as Luka, and Luka preys on the difference in athleticism. And he's like, so in your kind of analytic opinion, why do you think Tillman? Because it was driving me crazy. Why is this guy locking up our man? It was blowing my mind.
I mean, there are a couple of wide-bodied guys. Like it's like watching a pair of football players play basketball to a degree. And I think like a couple of guys in the Mavs Moneyball Slack were getting real upset that like he's not getting any fouls called on him, meaning Tillman. And I don't know what to tell him because I don't think he's fouling Luka. No, I think he's standing straight up, and Luka is has faded at times, like literally on the fadeaway shot, like a little too much. But that's all you can really do against Luka is to hope that he misses. That's kind of the end goal. Do you know what I mean?
I'd like to see threes. I mean, I'd like to see threes and layups against another like big burly guy like that.
I really don't have good answers because he realized at some point tonight that I don't actually. You know what? This isn't true. He didn't realize that his 3 wasn't falling. He just kept attacking the rim, and so that was part of it. So I think with Luka, you give him enough rope, he's always going to hang you. So if like they were to go to that matchup, at some point Luka's going to win it.
Yes. So. And there was that last thing. There was that guy in the front row underneath the basket who looked just like Martin Shkreli. I kept on thinking like, hey, is Martin Shkreli at this game? I wonder if anyone else saw that. Anyway, I'm going to sign out. Mavs fans for life, guys. Take care.
Be good, Sam. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, coming up next is my man Micah. Micah, you live there? Give Micah a second to unmute.
What's going on, Kurt?
Just enjoying the win, man. Just enjoying the win. What you thinking?
This was fun. It just showed how we were able to respond. It just showed how important it is for other guys to join the party, and it was fun. Like, we're not done yet. Am I going to say I'm overly confident about the series because of where we're at? I can't say that yet. But at the same time, if we do manage to dig this out, the slander is going to be glorious.
Sure. I mean, let's be real though. I'm not particularly interested in any sort of thinking along those lines until the Mavericks win game 2. You got to win in Boston. And Kyrie Irving has been just so unbelievably weird in his Boston performances, specifically in Boston. He has to overcome those demons. Just has to. So
that's something that just it gets into your head as a team.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say this as a gambler, right?
Right.
The Miami Dolphins have messed up a lot of my parlays playing against the Patriots over the years because whatever it is, they're in their head. So it's for Kyrie, it's just getting past that. But at the same time, as far as the team in general, it's just you just have to be able to open up more optionality.
Right.
Like, we're not seeing Derek Lively just splash that three like it was nothing, like no hesitation, no thought, and just splash that. And you think about that, what does that mean in the future? Like, let's just say, for example, right? Let's just say he's basically got a shot profile in the future of 12 shots a game.
Mm-hmm.
If he's shooting 2 of 5 from 3 and basically 4 of 7, and then he's averaging somewhere around 16, 3, 2, and 2. Like, where do we see him from this kid in the future? Right? And it's just
our chat thinks you're drunk, Micah. Have you had some drinks tonight?
I have had several drinks tonight because when I thought it was time to give up on this team, we showed these people that have been saying, "Oh, Luka doesn't impact winning." Well, shut the fuck up because y'all got bow raced by 50 almost.
Like almost 50 points. That's clear. I'm glad you had shots. I'm glad you had drinks because I did too.
Yeah, let me have drinks for that because for the Brian Windhorses of the world that don't think this guy can impact winning, just bust your team down by 50. But
I really like
the team that y'all been wanting to slurp on.
I really like Wendy.
Come on, man.
And the podcast that he did the next
guys. Let's respect this guy as a competitor. That's all I ask. That's
Micah,
all I ask.
You're the best, man. Thank you so much for hanging out, all right?
Have a great one, Kirk.
All right, talk to you.
Much love, brother. Peace.
You too. All right, the windy of it all is so funny. Ray, you're coming up next. I see your phone or whatever is up in the air. The windy of it all, if you heard him the next day on the Hoop Collective podcast, it's not like he walked any of it back, but he's just like, I think he can do better. I think he can do more. And like the answer is yes, of course. So, all right, let's go with Ray. Ray, I think you're going to close this out because I don't have anybody else, which is a little bit surprising, but hey, maybe we
can take our time then as long as you want, and then you can shut me off if you want. That's cool.
What's going on? Talk to me.
Great way to spend a Saturday afternoon here in New Zealand watching that. That was great.
Fantastic. That's good.
And it was the only Saturday game, by the way, weekend game in the finals that I get to see.
That's right.
Not a work thing. Yeah, so it was
without killing
awesome.
without getting in trouble somehow at work, right?
Or having to take an annual leave day type thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Actually, I had a few points, but now while you mentioned the Windhorse thing, I might as well go into it a little bit.
Sure, let's hear it.
Yep. So I agree too. I think it was his winners are on this side and the losers are on this side. I think that was the kind of I wouldn't even say too far, but like that was the kind of one that sounded a little bit too harsh.
It was like a wrestling promo.
Yeah.
It sounded like somebody had written that for him, and it clearly wasn't the case. It was a good line.
Yeah, there's a difference. Yeah, I like the line, but the difference between it is saying that, yes, he's right about all that, but he's just going through the same thing the best players in the world has gone through. LeBron couldn't make a jump shot in the 2007 finals.
Yeah.
And he overcame that. Jason Tatum, obviously, at this point. He's passing better and making other plays when his jump shot's not falling. He couldn't do that in 2002. So it's just the normal things that players have to go through, but they get eviscerated as it happens. That's kind of the reality of national media, I guess.
Yep.
But with the way Luka's responded, and I've mentioned this to someone before, and I don't know if you see this or it's just all in my head. When I find Luka a much better away game player than a home player, and part of me thinks it's because he needs an entity of some kind to focus his hate. Fuck you, I'm taking this game on. Mm-hmm. The referees are not a good one to do that with.
Nope.
The crowd is.
Oh, there were a lot of Boston fans there. I don't know if you could tell that from your feed, but my wife flew home today. She just got back from a trip. And she said at the airport, she saw so many Boston fans. Now, American Airlines Arena can sit about 20,000 people. Mm-hmm. So the tickets were quite, tickets for this sporting event. This is really inside baseball, but Mavs fans locally were very upset at how highly priced the tickets were. Mm-hmm. Meaning just for the playoff games, even if you were a season ticket holder, which meant you got priority access. But like some of the stuff were really expensive. So I think a lot of people looked to sell their game 4 tickets to make back their potential investment. Because like, I'm not kidding. Some of the things I've seen where it's like you could buy tickets in the lower bowl for $2,000 to $4,000. Like it was crazy expensive.
Was it the same situation as 2011 in Miami in Game 6? You reckon?
Oh my gosh, I was there in Game 6, and I could have bought tickets, and I just didn't because I was scared. I was like 25, I didn't have any money, but I didn't want to put it on like a credit card. But it was just like that, where it's like there were a lot of available tickets, and I think the Boston fans who travel were quite willing to snatch them up. And I don't want to say that he played well because Boston fans were there. That's not but I think you're right. Like I think he feeds off of trash talk, and like the Boston players aren't talking shit to him. Yeah, they're just letting him bury himself.
Yeah, and that's exactly the mindset. It's like he, as he grows, hopefully he needs to get to a point where even if you're in a situation where the refs are against you, the entire crowd loves you, don't just leave them the fuck alone. They're not going to do you any favors. Just win the fucking game. Don't worry about So yeah, no, I'm glad I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one that kind of sees this.
I mean, it's he's so good, and he needs those things to focus on. And you'd think he wouldn't necessarily need it for the finals, but I mean, we saw it in Game 5 against the Timberwolves. He was yelling at everybody. He was great.
Yeah, it was great. And I think that was the hot one. I think that's what brought on the Windhorse thing and all that sort of stuff is. I think most national media knew Luka was always been like this, but they didn't even think he'd do this in a very, very pivotal moment and get fouled out for the first time in the finals. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's mirror in the face moments for him, right? To learn and get better at. A big shout out to our point of attack defense. So much like, where was this? We were staying in front of Anthony Edwards. We were staying in front of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Do you think there was some weird Jason Kidd strategy the first few games where we're trying to funnel players?
No, I think this is one element where Kidd not being a super firebrand can work against his sort of coaching philosophy. And I understand why. I've learned a lot about this. I've been asking a lot of questions to people who cover the league. And the general notion is for a coach like Kidd, kind of a player's coach, he wants these guys to figure it out for themselves. They need to want to play hard. And he can't motivate them like he's Al Pacino in Any Given Sunday. That's probably a reference you don't get.
Oh, no. I'm a big movie buff. I get that.
So it's like that shit just doesn't work in an 82 game seasons. It's and I'm sure he does light into him now and again, but Luka and Kyrie, like Kyrie's defense tonight was magnificent,
fantastic,
and it's just it's like you guys like I don't know how to really explain it, but it obviously was better. That much is true.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like we had to scramble as much on rotations because we were either right beside them or right in front of them, Luka included. Mm-hmm. So now, big shout out to that, and I think I was going to talk about Derek Lively, but you guys have already pointed everything out perfectly. Imagine if he gets to a point where he can hit threes to the point where they have to close out on him.
I think that's going to happen. I don't think that's a if. I think that's a when.
Yeah, that'll be great.
This dude, and I'm too old for this, but my son makes me do all like he tells me about Pokemon stuff all the time. Like he is an evolutionary creature where when you consider where he was in Abu Dhabi or really Summer League last year in Las Vegas to
against
now,
the Timberwolves too. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I mean we're talking a year transformation where it's like, you know, I always argue with my boss where he always expects us to do better. You know, we always got to improve. And it's like, that's not real. You can't always improve. There are steps back. Whereas Lively, I've yet to see a step back. It's like the growth potential is just, no, that's not right. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Well, to be fair, game 1 and game 2, there was a moment where I thought, oh, is this the moment? But clearly not. So, no, that was really cool. And, great to see XM not get pulled out after 3 minutes. I think I mentioned that.
He looked good. Like, not only did he not get pulled, he was worth it. It was great.
But again, it's not like he wasn't worth it before. Like he was doing fine.
But there were games where he wouldn't look at the rim, and that was a problem.
Yes, I get that. Yeah, but I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the latter part of the Wolves series and then this series, I thought he was fine, and he kind of needed to be there more. But he has this thing where when he dribbles the ball, you feel safe. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah.
Compared to most other of the role players, you know, and I feel we need that more. And yeah, by the way, how funny is it seeing Tim Hardaway hit 5 threes in a row?
Not only 5 threes in a row, but 5 threes in 5 minutes. It was like, I mean, I wasn't, honestly, man, I was getting ready for the show. I wasn't watching, and my wife was sitting on the couch, like laughing. And I was like, it was insane.
Yeah. It was almost, I hate to say this, but it kind of made me more mad at him.
Oh, sure.
Than anything.
Like, you did this now. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe there's a little element of that with the Mavs team, our Mavs team in general, where it's like, oh, I love that you guys played this way and it's amazing and, you know, great response. But God, it would have been nice if you did this just a little earlier. Just a little bit. But hey.
Well, Ray, thank you so much for joining the show. You got anything else?
Yeah, hopefully I would love to see Kyrie exercise his demons in game sorry, I've just lost my track of thought. In game 5. It would be, you know, it would be something special, I think, because Luka has his own demons with his personal self, and he's exercised it a little bit today, just a little bit at least. Yeah. And it'll be good to see Kyrie do the same. And, you know, whether we make it the distance or not, at least it's sort of builds us a little bit up for the next time.
Well, I am very hopeful for that as well.
Yeah.
All right, man. Talk soon, all right?
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Last but not least, fellow Southern Hemisphere contributor, Rain. Rain, what's going on? You feel better after this game?
I do. I came into the chat last time saying I don't believe and I shouldn't be here, and now I'm going to bring it to you that apparently the NBA is the only major league sport which hasn't had a 3-0 comeback. It's bound to happen at some point. I'm not entirely sure that's going to be this year, but where to start? After the show last time, I went and listened to Windy, and frankly, I heard from him the same thing he says on every Hoop Collective podcast, because he always has to sneak in somewhere about how insufferable he finds watching Luka because of his complaint to the refs, both him and I would also argue Tim Bontemps as well.
Well, the ref complaining, like if you don't find Luka's ref complaining, I don't like, you're just a patient person. Like the ref complaining does suck. Like it's actively detrimental to the team. It's just, I think a lot of us have decided and accepted that that's part of his game. And I think the notion that it shouldn't be is not one we should let go of quite so easily. Only we can't change it.
Oh, I agree. And he definitely performs better when he doesn't. Simply just having him there when he gets back to be a part of the defense is game changing. I'm more bringing up that I don't think that Wendy had anything more to say than his regular agenda that you usually hear anytime Luka is brought up in the hoop.
Well, Luka's
which is all the
defense
time.
was there's data on this. Like, there's a couple of Mavs fans accounts, and I'm not. Look, I don't have any beefs to pick, but look, we all push our agendas because we believe and we like this team. If there's a couple of Mavs fans' Twitter accounts that were really pushing this strange notion that Luka was good on defense for the first 3 games. He was not. He was not. Period. That's okay. He's tired. He carries a huge load. I don't necessarily look to Luka for my defense. It's okay to just say that. Then what I'm also going to say is that tonight in game 4, he was fucking awesome on defense. Like, credit where it's due. There's just no reason to look at the sky and go, you know what? That sky is actually purple, and here's why. Like, it's just like this shit drives me crazy with people sometimes. Now that I shouldn't get too bent out of shape about it, because I really try to preach from the notion of we should all be the kind of fans that we want to be. Like, that's the whole point of rooting for laundry and rooting for players. But it's like, Luka, what Wendy had to say about Luka was rooted in the notion that Luka is capable of being one of the best players ever. And he wasn't playing like it through 3 games. So,
I mean, look, I wholeheartedly agree that he definitely fell back into some old habits in the first 3 games of the series defensively, which we haven't seen too much of through the previous series. Where would I like to go now? Oh, that Derek Lively 3 had me so hyped. It was I was struggling not to be as loud as I possibly could be. It almost had me as hype as Luka's game winner. That one shot alone, almost, even if we lose in game 5, makes this whole thing. I mean, it's worth it to get to the finals anyway. But
I know what you mean, though.
That's
like
one
a redeeming
moment
factor.
that can change the outlook of this team entirely if Derek Lively can be a threat from the 3-point line. He doesn't even have to be a 40% shooter. If he can hit league average and just be a threat, like you've said, to close out, completely changes the offense. Who knows? His comp could potentially be healthy KP, maybe?
I mean, he can do more stuff off the dribble than KP ever could.
I mean, I can't necessarily say more healthy because he did miss a ton of games this season. But
right.
The role players this game, they came out with such energy, and I quite like that they got to get some run, because who knows, that little bit of extra confidence going into the next game could be huge.
I agree with that a lot.
Tim potentially being able to be on a heater stretch again, maybe his maybe his bricklaying season is over and he's back to hitting threes. Who knows? It could be something that might be worth looking into. Now we all know that a kid will put him in for 20 minutes and not. But if we could just apply that rule of give him 3 shots, if he makes 1 or 2 out of 3, keep him in. Who knows? Maybe he can catch fire. Exum having some confidence, and both him and Green, confidence is key.
Yeah.
When they're confident, going to the rim, confident shooting, it makes all the difference. Someone else said that Exum is probably the third most trustworthy person to dribble the ball, and I agree with that, but it's all about the confidence. Does he have the confidence to handle the ball? Does he have confidence to take that shot? And these role players having some confidence could be what changes the game going into game 5. Because if we look at it specifically from 3, neither Kyrie or Luka had a good game. And if they don't again, but the role players keep that same energy and can make up that difference with the wide open shots that Kyrie and Luka can generate for them, it might not matter again. Now, I don't think it'll be a blowout, but who knows?
That's right, man. Who knows is the point. It's supposed to be fun, and it is fun right now.
This is just it's a much better place than we were in 48 hours ago.
That's yes. That much I can speak to.
Yeah.
All right, man. Hope we'll talk after next game. All right.
All right. See you, Kirk. Thanks, man.
All right. This is a good question. Nadeem Weiss says, Kirk, can you talk about Luka, Kyrie, and Exum in the lineup early on in the game where Exum was Oh, my internet died for a minute. Sorry about that, guys. Nadeem Waste says, Kirk, can you talk about Luka, Kyrie, and Exum lineup early on in the game? Where was Exum where Exum was bringing up the ball? That looked very good. They've been trying to steal stuff all series where someone else brings the ball up. But the difference with what particularly Exum has done is Exum has made himself a threat to try to go do something in the key and get the offense going early, even if Luka's not there. Whereas the other guys that were bringing up the ball, it was always an element of, well, you know, they're going to give the ball to Luka, so we can just sort of rest here anyways. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Mavericks maybe trying that continuously. And then honestly, looking at the film and saying, guys, other guys, Kyrie, you know, Derek Jones Jr., Maxi Kleber. Actually, I never want to see Maxi Kleber push the ball up the floor ever again. You can do something and you know, be a threat to the defense. You don't have to shoot, you don't have to score, but you can make them think and you can make them work. So that's a really good question, Nadeem. I like that. I like that thought. Okay, guys, it's 11:30. We've been hanging out for an hour and 15 minutes. Doesn't look like we have anybody else, so I'm going to cut us out here. I will see you guys on Monday night. This has been a great deal of fun, as always. Really appreciate you folks hanging out. Tell your friends, tell your colleagues, tell your enemies. We'll be here on Pod Maverick after dark, and then our live show. So everyone enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will talk soon. Go Mavs.